Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. You know what? By just sheer overwhelming popular demand, I am going to once again be talking about self-transforming machine elves. I guess the sort of psychedelic plant medicine in general, and this type of thing. Again, I think I mentioned it on the last two videos I did on the topic. I actually didn't really plan to talk a whole lot about about that stuff. I really thought I thought that the channel was more going to be talking about self-development in general, and like even particularly about like relationships, like dating advice, like success with women, and even like meditation and that kind of like shit. I want to go into that. But you know what, man? Hey, whatever. I don't give a shit. I will talk about damn psychedelic plant medicine fucking all day long. I don't really give a shit. It certainly was a topic that interested me greatly a few years ago, and it still is interesting. I don't give a shit. It's still fucking crazy. And I, while I'm not necessarily involved in it right now a whole lot, I would love to get back involved at a later point in my life when I feel more called to that. And in fact, maybe this is the gods kind of calling me to speak about it now, because maybe that is the reason that I'm not really involved in it. And maybe it's giving me a new perspective that I didn't have a few years ago. Probably like maybe 3 years ago or so, or 4 years ago. Oh shit, one second. Let me just do this thing really quickly. Da, 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 da. Very quickly. 1 second. There we go. Okay. Good to go. Just so that the screen doesn't go black. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I was very much into it. I was very much like I would always want to talk about it. I was always learning about it and like talking to people about this kind of idea. So yeah, I'm still into it. Let's go. Okay, off the rip. Um, how I kind of learned about this type of stuff. This is not all my ideas. This is not things that I just created out of nowhere. You know, like we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. So I'll just talk about how I started to learn about this stuff and how I kind of like synthesized it and like molded it into like my own ideas that I'm speaking about here. I first kind of learned about just like introspection and self-reflection in general, probably like in my very early 20s when I first read, believe it or not, like The Secret, like the book The Secret, which is cool. You should read it. Like it's very basic and it's very like entry level, but it is still good. It is still like about changing your thoughts from being like the classic is like looking for a parking space, where you're like, oh, I can't find a parking space. And it's where it's like, actually just change that and be like, hey, I'm gonna find a parking space. It's just starting to begin to be like, oh, I actually can change my mind about things, and that does actually influence my life. And whether or not that's like manifesting the whole world is changing, who really knows? But it doesn't matter. If you just get started, it's still cool. And later on you can get and start to understand like what really is the like metaphysical fucking underpinnings of reality and stuff. And that's, you can go as deep as you want in that, and who knows? No one knows, right? Nobody knows. And it's fucking crazy, and you can do it if you want, and you bloody well should. If you're called to it, if you're feeling called to it. So yeah, so I started looking into it a little bit, and I knew as soon as I kind of began to do that, like, oh, there's something here. Because up till then, my life was not really, I was just like anybody else. I had no idea. I was just like controlled by fucked up thoughts of like, oh, I'm stupid, or I'm not good enough, or blah, 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 worried about shit, constantly stressed, constantly everything. I had no idea. No one ever told me. So I didn't know. I was just going on like the momentum of my past, like most people, like damn 90% of people. So I started that, and then I did like a few like I had like some recorded meditations. I think I borrowed from like the public library, and that got me started a little more. I was like, oh, something's going on, but it was still very, very hard for me, and I wasn't able to stick with it. Stressed, whatever. And and then I think the next real movement was when I read Eckhart Tolle. I think I actually read A New Earth. And again, this was like over 10 years ago. And again, there was like these little shifts where I was like, oh, okay. I remember he has a line in, I am the awareness that is aware. I was like, oh shit, I'm not just all this stress and stuff. Because I actually came from a super like dense place. I came from a super dense, like very stressed, very like anxiety, very just upset, very like anxious about things, very like nervous about things was kind of my demeanor, and due to my experience in life, it got me to that place. So it took me a long time. Like it wasn't just like where I was just like overnight, I just clicked in and was like, all right, from this moment now my whole life's changing. For me, it was like a couple of years. It was like several years of kind of like starts and stops where I couldn't really, I had a lot of fear. Like I was scared of the pain. Like I had so much inside of me that was like hurting and like traumatic. I didn't even think it was possible. I really didn't. Fucking still sometimes I'm like, this is impossible. Like what the fuck? Whereas when we get to the psychedelics, I'll really tell you how that comes into play. But so anyway, I was like that. I was like, what the fuck? Like I can't do it. I can't do it. But so then I did some shit in my life. Like I went and did some traveling and stuff and blah blah blah. I had like girlfriend and stuff, and it eventually came to the point where I was like, okay, I have no choice now. Like I have to deal with this shit. Like I have to find a way to not just always be in reaction to like everything, you know. Um, and so I really like set down like this is what I'm gonna do. Then I started like writing a journal. I started reading more about self-help and about like positive thinking. Like I started doing that. Like this was probably like 7 years ago now. I started doing that. I started like talking to other people that I knew, like kind of mentors. There was like someone at my university, one of like the faculty who was very much understood about this type of stuff, and she was like helping me over time. She'd be like, oh, okay, you're right with that. Like you should keep doing that. And I had never really had that type of input in my life before of someone who was like, yeah, that's a good idea, man. Like like with my thoughts and like with my feelings. And she was like, no, no, like that's a valid point. Like you probably should be pissed about that. And I was like, oh, like an adult was saying that to me, even though I was like in my 20s. I didn't, I still felt like a kid in some ways. So I started doing that. I did that for like years, worked up journaling, reflecting, and then eventually like I would talk to my parents about this stuff, and they were like helpful. They were like, oh, you're right. Like you should be working that out and stuff, because they didn't really know any different. So I started doing it. And then the next real, like, major shift for me came, of course, probably like a lot of guys my age or people in general, is when I first really heard that like 5 minute clip on YouTube of fucking Joe Rogan talking about be the hero of your own life. It's like, just Google it right now. It's just like Joe Rogan motivation. I think there's a few ones on there now, but this was the classic one. It's only like 5 or 10 minutes long, and it was just him talking about how like, you can change your fucking life. Like you don't have to be the same fucking idiot that you were when you were fucking 17 and you were a drunk idiot and your fucking friends were fucking stupid to you and blah 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 blah. He's like, you can wake up today and fucking change your life, man. And man, I will never ever ever forget when I started listening to like that video, and that led me to like a few other like sort of videos like YouTube literally. And then I actually started listening to like Rogan's podcast, and it's probably cliche at this point, or it's probably people say it all the time, but it's the fucking truth, man. It actually, honestly, really did like change my fucking life, man. It really did. Like I don't even know what else to say. Like it was like one moment when I was like this was when I was in university, and I really was after I graduated university. It was so stupid. I went to that fucking dumb parade or whatever where you walk across the stage. It was so fucking stupid. It was so pathetic. The whole thing was just bullshit. It was just a fucking racket. And I remember being so upset about that. And I had worked so hard to do these stupid exams, which were so hard for me because I never had any amount of like education in school. It never worked for me. I didn't understand how to do their stupid fucking tasks. I didn't care. It was fucking stupid, and it's still stupid. But I just forced myself to do it because everyone told me, "Oh, university's so great." So I was like, "Oh, okay." And it was so pathetic. And I remember going home after that and turned on the podcast, Rogan's podcast, because I just started listening to it at like the very end of my university. And I remember thinking, like, this is my friends now. Like, this is my friend. Like this podcast now. This is who I want to be. Like I want to be like this. I don't. There's nothing out. There's nothing. I don't know where else to turn. Like this. I tried it. Like I tried to play the game. I tried to play university. I tried to like do their tasks. I tried to get like good grades. I tried, but like there was nothing there. Like they didn't know anything. There was just weak dudes and like social justice warriors like parading around a stage like giving each other diplomas, but no, they didn't care about me. Like they didn't know how hard I struggled. They didn't realize that it was just all fucking nonsense. And I was sitting there, I remember going home and turning Rogan on. It was like, man, this is my path now. Like this is my path. I don't have anywhere else to go. Like, and I didn't like it. I'm sure I talked about that in another video. Like, I was not happy about the idea of like buying in, because I buy in like a motherfucker. When I lock in on some shit, I do it. Like I was like that, like with working out. Like I was like that. Even my mom says I was like that when I was a little kid. When she was like, "Okay, well it's time to go from the crib to the big kid's bed," I was just like, "Oh, is that what we're doing? Okay, done." And it would just click over in me. So I'm pretty good at that. Mind you, that's not always served me in my life because I've clicked over on some things that haven't been beneficial. So I'm still working with that. I'm not a perfect person. But anyway, when it came time for this, I just said, okay, yeah, university didn't work. That was bullshit. The society's fucked. What is real? So I started down this rabbit hole. And I began that, and I through like Rogan, I began to trust him. Like I began to trust, like, oh, okay, he's a real person. Like he has his own integrity, he has his own mentality on things. He's not perfect, but he's honest about it. And then I started to trust other people through him, like other like guests that he had. Like, you know, I began to believe in them, and over time, like, um, I branched out and like watched like London Real and like you know, like Duncan Trussell podcast and a few other ones. Okay, and then Rogan started to would talk frequently about psychedelics, about like mushrooms, about like DMT, and then started to hear that on London Real, and I started to hear that like, you know, I started actually researched a little bit like Albert Hoffman, who synthesized LSD, and some of these things, and I started looking at some of the artwork online, like of like DMT ayahuasca artwork and stuff, the more I looked into it, the more it really resonated with me. Right, mind you, up till this point, I had never really had like completely open access. Like, believe it or not, like this is the truth. Okay, and this is in like this is embarrassing, but this was literally in like 2013. No, this was like probably 2000, like, yeah, I guess 2013. Yeah, okay, yeah. 2013, 2014, maybe even. Believe it or not, this is the truth. Up until then, I had never really had like unlimited access to like the internet and like the computer. I just didn't really. Like I had been traveling and I didn't really have like a smartphone. I didn't really have like a laptop. I just never had that shit. I know it's crazy, but it's the truth. And so that was the first time when I had like really access to a laptop. I had gotten a laptop through school and through the university, and it was the first time I really started going. I went down this rabbit hole, man, and and Rogan would always talk about like Terence McKenna, right? And the more and the psychedelics and everything, and it just, man, it really like resonated with me, and I knew that there was something there, and I knew that the society was all lies, was all nonsense, and he was finally making sense, and I had looked at the kind of the far end of stuff with like the fucking Alex Jones, like reptiles and fucking conspiracies and everything. I was like, okay, well, maybe there's something there, but you guys are too far. Like, and then I saw at university with the social justice warriors, and I was like, oh, that's too far too. And then once I was like, okay, but Rogan, he seems to be making sense. Like, as hard as that is to believe, this fucking UFC guy, but yeah, he was making sense, and you got to find your own way to see things. So I went into that, and it was probably a good year. It was probably a solid year of me watching the podcast, watching videos about like Terence McKenna lectures, watching other podcasts, watching other YouTube videos, watching some documentaries, and I really started going into it. I really started looking into it, and it became more and more and more obvious to me that this psychedelic experience was very, very important for the human being and for our species, and really particularly for our society now. Like, we're desperate for it. And it became more and more obvious to me. And so I was like, okay, that this is clear, this is obvious. Um, and I was like going down that path, and I was understanding the background behind it, and eventually I was like, all right, this is something that like I need to do this. Like, I'm feeling called to this. Like, I need to I need to experience this. Like, I don't have anywhere else to go. I felt. Like, disclaimer, like, this not was not all a free ride for me. Like, didn't all go perfectly, and maybe it wasn't the best way to do it. But this is just my journey. This is how it went for me. And so eventually, yeah, like I went down that path, and I had like my experiences with those medicines, like the psilocybin is what I looked into, and several sessions I ventured down that path, and I won't get into like the particulars of how you should do it or how not to do it or this type of thing, or the different medicines, particularly like whether it's ayahuasca, DMT, all this different stuff. I don't even know the fucking legalities of it. I hardly even know how to fucking open up my laptop. So this is a stretch for me, even turning on a video and somehow getting it onto YouTube. This is literally the extent of my fucking computer know-how. It's like I open up the laptop, I like click on YouTube, and then I press play. Now I can actually record a video. So this is like, anyway, it's another story. um, so yeah, so I went down that path, and yeah, the self-transforming machine elves, I guess, if you want to hear particularly about that. Yeah, I mean, I heard about that from Rogan talking about it via Terence McKenna. And I really dipped into McKenna, like several, like dozens and dozens of hours. I listened to his lectures, incorporating ideas. And I'm pretty good at taking shit in and then like molding it into my own like mentality of things, being like, that's some shit right there. That's some fucking shit. And pushing that and being like, okay, this is what I think of it. And so I was able to do that a bit with all these ideas, and I took them from different places. And you know what? It's all very real. Like, it's very, 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 very real. Like, it's very real. So whatever you think is like possible for your own experience or for your own life, or for your own plant medicine journey, like, yeah, man, you can do that. Like, it can happen, and it's gonna happen, and it will happen to you. And it's very startling, very, very, very arresting to the human being to experience these and mind you, this is like 3 years ago, and I'm still talking about it like, damn, this was several sessions. This was like 7 sessions I did over the course of 1 year. And again, I used the proper setting and the knowledge and the intent. That's all very important. So I did that over the course of this year, and again, it wasn't all perfect, and there were like uh, there were like consequences to that as well, right? So it's not all perfect, but I'm just explaining here what I think, and maybe someone can be helped by this. But like in terms of self-transforming machine elves, I know recently I heard Rogan said he didn't really experience that, or he didn't really understand what McKenna meant by that, like the machine elves. Like he didn't quite get that. He talked about it as like a geometric patterns filled with love. He kind of explained them, and I think that is the transforming elves. Like I actually think that's what it is. But I guess he didn't quite see it that way, and that's okay. But for me, it did ring quite true. Like elves, even elves rang true. Self-transforming, the machinery. Like for me, it really hit. I was buying in. Again, I buy in on things. So I bought in with like with McKenna's vision, and I needed to because I needed to. To me, there was no. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have. There was no guide. There was no one explaining it to me. So I had to take his word for it, McKenna's word for it, and Rogan, and like I said, from London Real, and even like I think like Rupert Sheldrake. I heard talk about it a bit, and who else? Even Alan Watts, a little tiny bit, although he doesn't go too deep into the like literal like psychedelic experience. But to really try to put it together, um, and even for me, actually listening to the Icarus songs, like I think that's how you pronounce it, but like the ayahuasca music, like na 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 na, like just go listen to that shit. It might fuck you right up. I still listen to it sometimes. This shit's crazy. The shamans sing it in the jungle, and they say like, well, the plants taught us how to sing these songs. Like the plants told us. It's bizarre, but it's real, and it's like you figure it out. So that's my opinion, and for a long time afterwards, like these experiences I had, I was very dismissive of like hardcore, like scientific, like straight laced people. I wasn't really even open to hearing from them because I didn't. I was like, you have to go experience that first. I don't even. I can't even speak to you until you do that because you're not even you're totally like what the fuck like it was like for me talking to someone who's overweight and they're like you should work out like this nom nom nah you should eat this and I'm like bro you're way overweight like you don't know anything and so when scientific people I like and that was part of what I had problems I had with the university and stuff is they were like well if you think like this that's not true because science said that and I was like dude you only need to take this medicine and it's going to be very clear for you. I don't really care how much you want to say. There's no other dimensions. There's no other creatures. There's no other gods. That's not true. It's like I couldn't even. I was like, yeah, okay. Well, I already looked, and it's obvious to me that there seems to be. And I know even this is still very much up for debate, and everyone has different opinions. And recently, Rogan had Dennis McKenna on his podcast, and they even talked about, I think even Dennis was saying, like, I don't know, I don't really think there is, like, entities, or maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but again, it's very much up for debate, or, right, and I think Terence, I think, I don't know all the little ins and outs of what each one of them sort of thought about it, but it's not outside the realm of possibility, and actually, I seem to think that there were, like, entities there in those other in the other realms. You see, there is like alternate realms from this one here, right? There are different like degrees of I don't know, like reality. There are like dimensions, and it sounds fucked up. And if you just some random person just turned that on, they'd be like, "That fucking idiot with the beard, what a fucking idiot! He's crazy." Blah, blah, blah. It's like, all right, man, you can think that if you want. Like, I don't give a shit. But it isn't like you can just check and then you will be saying the same thing, right? Like it doesn't really matter who you are. Like you can take any person really, and they can just sit there and be like, no, science said that this is a fucking wall and this is a fucking chair and that's all it is. It's like, all right, man, cool. And then you just administer them these medicines, and like a few hours later, they're like, oh no, there's clearly a lot more going on. Unless they're, I suppose some people might be able to just like keep their mind super and be like, no, I don't believe it. And it's like, okay, man, whatever. But yeah, to me, I was clearly experiencing much different states of consciousness and very wider perspective of things and a much more like integrated and like organic understanding of fucking life and reality and like spirit and much more too, much more, like the whole idea of like rebirth and like ancestry, like coming forth into this reality and the like whole like spiritual pool of like sort of like soul like existence and it like manifesting itself into this reality and shit. Like, man, I was getting a lot of different ideas. And you know, it takes a strong person to be able to bring that back and incorporate it into this reality, which again, it's tough because you look around and you're like, oh, okay, so there's McDonald's and there's the mall and here's like the media and here's like the, you know, like political system, and it's all, you look at it and it's all just so like, it's so obvious, right? It's almost too obvious when you see other people who are bought into that. And it's just like, oh my God, man, like, what are you doing? Like, you're way off. And so it is difficult. But, self-transforming machine elves, I want to hear maybe some other people's opinions. Like, that's what I got. That's how I see it. That's what I have to say about it. There's some cool artwork on YouTube or on Google. Just Google, like, DMT elves or self-transform machine elves and look at the artwork, and it's like, yeah, man, it's happening. It's real shit. Like, they seem to be dancing on through. They seem to dance on through. And if you get in there with the Icarus, I hope that's how you pronounce it, but just look up ayahuasca music. They kind of bring them in. They call it calling in the Icarus. And when I was using it and I was using the medicines, they were just chopping on in. I was just like feeling, and it's not even visual. It's, to me, it wasn't even visual. Like, I don't even. It's like, dude, no, I'm not even bothering with it. It's more than that. It's like an entire like thought existence. I always see them just chopping in. It's like, here they come. It's like, okay, this is what's happening. This is cool. And yeah, they seem to. But on top of that, I guess there's other creatures too. I met other distinct creatures. I'm sticking by that word of creatures. There were like actual characters. Like, I can still remember like meeting characters and they had like full-blown personalities and they were like, "Oh, hey man, what's up? Oh, you're here. Oh, cool. Well, we want to show you this. No, come see this." And they were like almost like selling me ideas and stuff. It is so much more strange than you even begin to even think. It's like, actually, the scientist, biologist Richard Dawkins, he needs to get down with some of this stuff, to be honest. But he's very brilliant. He's very smart. He's a very good scientist and stuff. And he talks and he bashes on people who are just like evangelical religious people. And, you know, for some good reason. Like, they're a bit off. They're way off, you know. But he's a little off too, I think. And he says, like, the universe is stranger than you can even suppose. And he's right, but you can also get in there and access that via these medicines. And then you can really see how strange it is. Much more strange than just some little science experiment's going to explain to you. Like, oh, did you know there's 8 billion microns in your fucking toenail? And it's like, okay, cool. That is amazing, and I never expected that, and I didn't suppose that. But here, just take this substance, and you start to encounter like different dimensions and different creatures who are like keen to explain things to you, and they have their own personalities and their own like lives. They have like their whole own lives, and it's like, what? How is that even possible? Hey, man, I don't know. And so yeah, I went down that journey, man, and like, Yeah, I was big into that. I was big into talking about that and like and engaging with those ideas like a few years ago, and that even led me into like I even went so far. I went far. I go far. I go hard on things. If you didn't already know that, sometimes too hard. It's true. But I went deep, and I started getting into like even tarot cards. I got tarot cards. I got crystals. I know Rogan hates the crystals. He's a bit hard on the crystals. I think I still dig the crystals here and there. I think they do have a bit of energy to them. Whatever, man. Whatever. It's all good. But oh yeah, I was like, I even looked into like energy healing. I used to have this guy. Actually, there's videos of me with Jacob the energy healer way down in my old school shit. I'd get fucking energy healing from Jacob all the time, bro. It was crazy. Um, so yeah, it's a real thing. Okay, so anyway, the point of the whole damn video is that I can talk about the shit all day long if you fucking want, or if you have any specific questions about this for me. But mainly, it's like I'm like probably not even the really best person to even explain this stuff anymore. Like, obviously, you want to learn about this shit, like Terence McKenna. Get the fuck in there. Watch some of his shit. There's all kinds of lectures on there. There's all kinds of wicked produced shit with music in the background. Watch some Terence McKenna. He's like the king. Okay? Get on there. Also, you want to slide in there a little bit. Hear Rogan talk about it. He's going to break it down for you. I'd even go on and watch some stuff on London Real where they talk about ayahuasca, and he even has Dorian Yates come on and talk about it. I love hearing different people's perspectives on it. Like, there's a lot of, Aubrey Marcus, Rogan's business partner, he goes in deep. He goes in extremely deep on his podcast and stuff. He goes in so hard. And he brings on the guy who he calls the White Wizard, called Um, damn, I forgot his name off Don Howard, I think, yeah, and he's like the king in the jungle of the ayahuasca and the different medicines and stuff. And there used to be this guy called oh damn it, I forget his name, but he was a fighter and he was on London Real, and he had like a heart problem. I think he called it wolf heart, so he had to get out of the UFC, and then he started taking mushrooms and stuff. And actually, he inspired me as well. I forget his name off the top of my head, but there were different guys like that. Oh, Graham Hancock. And when I started learning also about the pyramids and shit, and like what the fuck, there was like seemed to be like an ancient civilization previous to this one. What in the shit? And they fucking built the pyramids and stuff. Like what the hell? And then I would hear like the idiots and like the Egyptology religion, I guess, and they're like, no, it got built like this. And I was like, oh, you fucking morons! You are the same idiots that just say shit. You guys are just a religion. Like this is you don't know anything. And then it blew the whole top for me. It blew the whole top off society, and I was like, oh no, shit. There's way more to this life than what I don't want to. Maybe it's good that maybe I am the person to talk about it. I don't know, because like I truly and honestly did not want to hear it. I did not want to believe it. Like I wanted just my university teacher to know what was going on, some doctor to tell me what the fuck I should do. Maybe, wanted to want this one job in the government, get my paycheck, and then maybe I could have an apartment, and then maybe I could just like watch a movie or play a fucking video game or something. Like I honestly was hoping that that was reality. Like I really was like willing to accept that. Like I actually was. Like maybe I can just have one girlfriend or maybe not, and that's okay, and this is what I'll do. I was into that. Like I was ready to believe it, but it was not the case anymore. The world had different things in store. The rabbit hole went deep through the looking glass. I made the major mistake, just like Neo from the Matrix. I took the red pill. That made all the difference. I was foolish. I was young and foolish, and I took the red pill. just like Neo, and I was yanked out of the Matrix. Oh my gosh, out of the Matrix. What's a person to do? But hey man, you can do it. Maybe, you have the right. Maybe this is turning into a you have the right to take the red pill video. You really do. And whether that's down like the psychedelic plant medicine, that'll fucking red pill your shit right up. In a certain way, but there's other methods too. But that's one way to figure that out. Like I actually personally think, especially over these past couple of years, like the idea of like red. I don't even really like that fucking word that much. Like red pill. Like it's a bit weird. Like it's so much bullshit along with it. Like, but to really get into like the truer natures of at least of like human behavior and stuff, like learning about relationships and that kind of shit, definitely tunes you into that. Like with the plant medicine, I more learned not really so much like red pill, I wouldn't say. It was more just like I just learned that like, oh, okay, society's not, they don't really know that much. Like, yeah, they know how to like build bridges and like make the fucking stop lights work properly and like electricity, like that's cool, but they're like culture and like the narrative of society they don't really know anything. Like they don't have any much good ideas. Like they just want to like propagate the fucking military industrial complex and like the bankers and just push the fucking peasants around, and that's about it. Like and just like you can go and watch a football game once in a while. It's like that's all they really want for you, and you're just a victim of that. Not like I'm not selling like a victim story, but I'm just saying they're just pushing you around. Like, and I was so for that, it was pretty clear to see that with the plant medicine. For me, it was. I was like, oh, okay, all right, I see what you guys are doing. And that's why it was hard for me to fit in. It still is, because society don't want that shit. And that's why that shit's all illegal. And they're so fucking against it. Because they don't want you doing that. They want you to just shut the fuck up. Drink your beer. Shut up. Watch the football game. That's it. Okay, so that's Self-Transforming Machine Elves. That's part 3 on Transforming Machine Elves. I can't even believe it, but they're by far my most watched, by far my most commented on videos. It's fucking bananas. But hey, that's what people want to hear, And I don't even know if I have more to talk about on them. But I could one day, not today, don't have the energy. But another day, if someone comments about it, I'll talk about an experience that I had deep on in with the old plant medicines. Deep on in. Speaking to highly, highly authorized creatures. Some of the highest. Possibly, certainly a very high god, if you will. Speaking directly to me. I don't know, maybe I already told that story. Fuck. But that motherfucker spoke directly to me. And was like, speaking me down. Not down, no, he was very like, he just was direct, man, and it was like, it was some serious shit. It was cool though. Actually, I did tell you, that was the whole story. Okay, I'm gonna end this damn video, because it's 38 minutes. That's a good chunk. Alright, yo, didn't do a video in a while, here's one for you. Hit up some more comments, yo. I like seeing the comments. It's like a little surprise. It's like a text message from some random girl who I thought had already flaked off, and then she texts me. I'm like, oh, this is fun. That's like these messages, literally. I compare them. That's how when I get a comment on a video, I'm like, oh, sweet. It's dope. It's like randomly some girl texts me. I'm like, oh, nice, this one. Dope. I love it. Living the dream. Okay, everybody. Enjoy yourselves. Like this video, leave a damn comment, and fucking subscribe so I can get some more love out here in the internet, in the YouTube universe. All right, everybody, peace out.